Hi, I'm Femi OK, and you're in the stream live on Al Jazeera and right now on YouTube. Today we discuss a new proposal to help rescue migrants and refugees attempting to cross the Mediterranean Sea into Europe.
I'm Malika Bilal, and later we'll welcome back past guests, one Ethiopian, one Eritrean, to explore what renewed relations between the countries means for their people.
But first, have a look at this story from Al Jazeera's Osama bin Javid. He reports from Lahore with some of the news about Pakistan's general election.
Millions came out to vote, even for those convicted of corruption and serving jail time.
My vote is for Nawaz Sharif, come what may. Forget the criticism. Our heart is with him.
Rights activists had raised concerns about pre-poll manipulation in these elections, and international monitors say not enough observers were there due to bureaucratic delays. As the votes were being counted, supporters of Imran Khan came out to celebrate. For them, the result was predetermined.
This is the first time we've had the chance to defeat the two parties who've been in control, taking turns at power.
In an early morning news conference, the Muslim League-Nawaz said the election was rigged. They claimed their party was targeted, that voting was deliberately slowed down, and results were manipulated. Not just the PMLN, but all major political parties apart from Imran Khan's PTI have rejected the preliminary results. On Thursday, they will decide what to do next.
In addition to the political sparring between parties, this year's election cycle has been marred by violence. An ISIL-claimed bomb attack in the provincial capital Balochistan on election day killed at least 30 people. Joining us now to help us unpack the latest results and the circumstances surrounding Wednesday's vote is Sara Zaman. She works as a journalist for Voice of America's Urdu language service. Hello, Sara. It's good to have you here. Hashtag Pakistan elections. Malika Bilal, what do we have?
Oh, gosh, so much. And I think that is partly because there's a bit of confusion. So we saw earlier that there are allegations of vote rigging, and yet Imran Khan has come out and declared victory. This is what our community thinks about that, or at least one member. Osman says this is very simple. Our economy is in a miserable condition because of massive corruption and money laundering, and Imran Khan not only created awareness, but is the only non-financially corrupt leader in our country. So there is some excitement there. Right. Earlier today, he actually came out, Imran Khan did, and talked about corruption. In a sense, he talked about how lavish the Prime Minister's residence is and how he will not be taking it if he assumes office.
Right. Well, his whole thing has been, I'm going to be anti-corruption, and that is how he took down Pakistan's previous Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. The whole idea was these leaders have been corrupt, they've been looting Pakistan's wealth, and now is the time to actually not only hold them accountable, but kick them out of power. So what's been really interesting, and what this person has said, is exactly what a lot of young people are saying, that, regardless of everything else, there may be allegations about the fact that, he has what are so-called electables, people who have been part of the setup that has brought Pakistan to the point where Pakistan is at today. They're part of Pakistan's problems, but they're also electables. And so a lot of people were upset that, Imran Khan, for all that he talks about change, is still surrounding himself with those kind of people. But at the end of the day, this idea that, he has not committed any kind of corruption, he, took public money and built hospitals with that, those are the things that have attracted people to him. So that's, this pretty much sums it up. And what the speech that he made today, a lot of people are calling it a victory speech, but we know that we don't have final results just yet. And as far as the rigging is concerned, it's actually rather interesting this time. So this time, there's not really so much this concern that ballot boxes were stuffed with fake votes. The concern is what they were calling pre-poll rigging, creating an environment where one party kind of has an edge, has an easier way to get ahead, and making it a little difficult for other parties, the parties that have been traditionally in power, Pakistan People's Party and Pakistan Muslim League-Nawaz.
How did they do that?
How did they do that? Well, it's an interesting question because there is no concrete evidence of how this was done. But this is how the powers that be always function, no matter what country you're in. You're never, if they are leaving traces, then they're not doing a good job, right? So they don't really leave traces. But the idea was, we saw a lot of people who were part of the ruling party, Pakistan Muslim League-Nawaz, PMLN, defecting from the party. Either running as candidates or joining PTI, Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, which is Imran Khan's party. So that was one example that people used. The other example that they were using was the pressure on media. It had become harder to criticize the establishment. It had become harder to get a narrative across that was not necessarily in line with what the establishment wanted. So there was an environment that was created according to some, observers, some circles, but of course not everybody agrees with it 100%. So you'll find a variety of opinions.
I'll just play you a little clip for our viewers as well. Shahbaz Sharif, he's the president of the PMLN, which is the ruling party, and he's speaking about voting irregularities and while tackling them and calling them out is so important. Have a listen.
It's not about seats. It's not about government or opposition. It's about the future of this country. It's about the mandate of the people. It's about Pakistan's well-being, our posterity. It's a larger issue.
So much to talk about. There's that bomb attack that I mentioned right at the beginning of the introduction. How much does violence characterize this campaign and then this election?
So if we compare it to the previous election, 2013, at that time Pakistan was going through a very difficult phase. There was just a lot of terrorism all over Pakistan and there was a very concerted effort to fight it. This time, overall, if you look at Pakistan's security situation, it has improved. This time, the attacks were actually targeting specific people, specific parties. So in fact, I was talking to one of our correspondents on the ground, and he said that because of the terror attacks, both the ones that happened before the election, that one of them killed approximately 150 people, and then yesterday's attack killed about 30 people, both happening in Balochistan. So it affected the number of people who came out to vote. It affected voter turnout. But overall, interestingly, the parties that were actually attacked in these two incidents ended up winning seats in the provincial assembly. So that was a very interesting thing that came out of it.
I want to share on that note this tweet from Fatima Ansari, who says, the series of attacks that took place didn't surprise me. Most Pakistanis expected a surge in violence prior to the elections, as there are forces with conflicting political interests working internally and externally. It's sad to read that as an outsider, that some are saying, well, this is business as usual. We expected this to happen. We understand that it was going to anyway.
That's part of Pakistan's larger problem, the larger picture in Pakistan, because since 9/11, we have seen a wave of terrorism strike Pakistan. So no matter what the occasion, whether it's a religious festival, whether it's a shrine, or whether it's elections, anytime a large number of people have gathered, somehow we have in Pakistan sort of become accustomed to this type of news occurring. It's sad, but it has just become part of reality. I do want to go back to a previous point and just want to clarify something, that other than this idea that before the elections, some room is being created for one party. The other thing that happened yesterday, two things actually happened. One was that a couple of parties, including the ruling party and one of the other important parties, Bhutto's PPP, they have said that their political agents were not allowed to be in the rooms when votes were being counted. So they are complaining that there was not enough transparency in this process. The other thing that happened, incidentally, was that the Election Commission of Pakistan was trying electronic voting and that system crashed.
All right. Thank you so much. There was a 9-hour difference between DC and Pakistan. You have been working overtime. Yes. Thank you for joining us here on the stream to talk about the Pakistan elections. And if you are watching Al Jazeera and following online, have a look at this page here, Pakistan Elections 2018. You can keep refreshing it and then seeing how the elections will turn out. Votes are still being counted. So we move now to Mallorca, Spain, where Al Jazeera's Katia Lopez-Hodorian reports on the efforts of aid organisations to rescue people stranded on the Mediterranean Sea.
A desperate rush to save lives. It's the moment rescue workers see stranded migrants in the Mediterranean. A 40-year-old woman from Cameroon is still alive, but for another woman and a toddler, it's too late. Aid group Proactiva Open Arms found the migrants and say the deaths were no accident. It's accusing Libya's Coast Guard of manslaughter. They say politics came before humanitarian assistance. The rescue group says it was denied proper help, which made their 4-day journey across the Mediterranean longer than needed. The Libyan Coast Guard denies the accusations. It says it rescued 165 migrants in that same area last week without leaving anyone on board. But the rescue team insists this case has broader political implications.
It's unthinkable for a country of the European Union, for my country to finance the Libyan Coast Guard, which we can testify leaves people alive in the middle of the sea and is responsible for homicide.
A desperate journey with a tragic end that's claimed the lives of so many migrants. Now a call for political action when humanitarian help alone is not enough.
Though migration across the Mediterranean has dropped significantly since 2015, data from the UN Refugee Agency and the Missing Migrants Project reports that within the last 6 months, 28 out of every 1,000 people who attempt to journey across the Mediterranean die at sea. Gerard Canals is the mission coordinator for Proactiva Open Arms. That's the aid organisation you just saw there in Katia's report. Gerard, it's good to have you here. It is really hard to get a sense of what is happening out at sea just by talking about it. So I went to the proactivaarms.org page and you can see the kind of missions that you go on. Can you explain that to our audience who are watching this video and what are they seeing and what you do?
Well, what we do is we stay at sea. We have 2 ships operational. We stay at sea and we look for those who are fleeing Libya in that trip that's supposed to reach European coast, but that with the assets that they are provided with terrible rubber and wooden boats, there is no way that they do it by themselves. So they are left adrift, usually without food and without gasoline and without any way to navigate north. So in the end, they will die if no one else can help them. So that's what we do. Usually we stay outside of the territorial waters, around the 30 nautical miles, and from that position we respond to the distress situations that we find out.
So you are now based in Barcelona, Spain, and the crossings are actually happening along that northern coast of Africa. You are a long way away from where people are crossing. What problems does that cause?
Well, usually we used to be based in Malta, so just 1 day away from the SAR zone. But now, because of the political situation, we find ourselves banned from entry either to Maltese waters and to Italian waters. So now we have to go to the closest port for us, for the closest European port for us, and it's at home in Barcelona. So from there we have to make a long trip, about 4 days, traveling to the SAR zone. Logistically, it's very hard for us because we are losing a lot of time on the way. We have to invest a lot of money for the petrol, for example, and also to find crew is harder because now we have to stay longer periods at sea. And in the end, all that provokes less days on the SAR area and less ships on the SAR area, less days on the SAR area. It will become more deaths.
But Gerard, you mentioned being blocked from Italian waters. Our community is talking about what some of these host countries, reluctant host countries, are doing at this moment, Italy being one of them. The government recently rejected a European Commission plan to pay 6,000 euros to any government that would help take people that were rescued from boats. And this is what H.G. Flores thinks of that. He says this isn't a real offer. 6,000 euros would only last for a limited amount of time. And after that, the Italian government would have to cover the costs, which far exceed the amount offer. A better offer would be if the EC were to match any expenditures spent on refugees. And this is a hot topic, so we got several comments on this. This is another one from someone who says, consider any nation that accepts this deal has an incentive to spend far less per immigrant not providing services or aid if the cost of those services and aid would surpass the 6,000 euro amount. This means either vast deportation or horrible conditions of long-term detention. When you think of this policy, Gerard, what do you think the repercussions will be?
Look, I can talk much about how to solve the situation if it has to be solved through paying 6,000 euros to the country who will assist taking these people. I don't know. Our expertise is in the SAR zone, and that's what we know how to do. For me, the problem should be solved looking to the origin of the countries. What are the problems that they are facing at home? And this is not something that they will fix in a short time. But for the situation that for the people that we are rescuing at sea, we need to be provided for a port, close port to disembark, and then these people should be redistributed through Europe by other means, not by the rescue ships. If the countries that get these people should get 6, 12 or 20,000, I don't know. This is not something I can say, but obviously 6,000 euro is not enough to sustain a life of a person for very long in Europe.
Gerard, I was just thinking about the change in the atmosphere between 2015, when so many refugees and migrants were crossing from North Africa across to the Mediterranean, and what's happening right now, where there are countries that are very hostile to those same people trying to get into those countries and their ports are closed. I'm wondering if you feel that there is some kind of unofficial, unwritten policy where they have decided, those countries have decided, that it's okay for people to drown.
Well, it looks like this is the new policy of Europe. They just do nothing, and they make this sea frontier that we have, this border that we have, that is the Mediterranean Sea, take the lives for those who are trying to cross it. And that's what is happening right now. All the assets of Europe are far away from this SAR zone. So only the military assets, which are there not for search and rescue, but for intelligence operations and other, and us. So
yes,
that's not enough. That's not enough. But this is what they want. It seems that they want the North African countries to let the people know that if they try to cross by sea, they will die.
They will die. Yeah.
They think it will prevent
the ultimate sanction. Gerard, thank you so much for updating us on your organization's rescue efforts on the Mediterranean Sea. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Finally, take a look back to this conversation we had in June about renewed diplomatic ties between Ethiopia and Eritrea, and what political scientist and researcher Rahel Sebhatu said about the potential for peace.
Ethiopia was serious about having peace with Eritrea. They would demilitarize the border. They would remove their troops from Ethiopian land.
And then
after
shaking
that
his head there.
we could discuss normalizing relations, and it wouldn't be. It's not. We shouldn't think about this in terms of, should we have pillars or walls to make the borders. If Ethiopia fully agrees with the EEBC final decision and remove their troops, normalization will not talk. We're not going to discuss where to put the poles. We're going to talk about how we can celebrate, our diversity and commonalities between these borders.
We're happy to welcome back to the stream Rahel, who joins us from Stockholm, Sweden, and Awal Alo, a lecturer in law at Keele University in the UK. Welcome back to both of you. That was a heated discussion we had last time. And Rahel, you were saying that there will be a normalization effect. You were looking forward to normalizing relations and said that's when we can talk about peace and what comes next. Since then, this happened. Look at my screen here. You see Natalie tweets flags are lining the main streets. Banners in English, Tigrinya, Amharic, Oromia are going up. There's an air of excitement. What an interesting time to be in Asmara. And this was for the welcoming of the Ethiopian Prime Minister. You can see the signs there. Welcome, dear brother Abiy Ahmed. A lot of excitement there. I know personally for you, Rahel, you were at a peace rally a couple weeks ago, marching alongside people from Ethiopia when someone took your flag. Tell us about that story.
Yes, there was a woman there who had small Ethiopian flags, and she asked to exchange her flag and my flag. So I found myself with an Ethiopian flag in my hand, and it was surreal, really, because I didn't imagine that I would be holding an Ethiopian flag and being able to imagine the opportunities of that peace will provide for us now that things are going really well between the countries.
Well, I'm looking at this story here. It's from NPR in the States, and it says here, I am calling randomly to say hi. Eritreans, Ethiopians phone each other amid the four. What other stories do you have of this warming relationships between Ethiopia and Eritrea?
It's incredible. So when we were on this show about a month ago, the discussion we were having was in a completely different spirit. We were talking about whether a rapprochement would ever be possible between the two countries because of the depths of the bitterness and the anger and the pain that is left behind by the war. And we were talking about why the Eritrean government has not replied nearly 2 weeks after the Ethiopian government extended that olive branch. And now what we have suddenly is this sudden explosion of sentiments and expression of solidarity, love and affection and forgiveness. I mean, nobody thought that we would suddenly move from a state of war into the kind of images and the pictures that we have seen and expressed in a range of different ways. It was, for me, I think, one of the most incredible and remarkable month in the history of peacemaking, I would say.
So from a state of war to this new state of peace or finding peace, we got this comment here from Nanjala, and this is shifting the conversation a little bit because she says there are still a number of political prisoners and journalists in jail in Eritrea, and they should be released as a symbol of a renewed commitment to turning over a new leaf. So Rahel, I bring this up because we have seen in the run-up to these new relations, we saw the release of political prisoners in Ethiopia. We saw moves on the part of the Ethiopian government to bring about a thaw. People online are saying, now what is the Eritrean government going to do? You can take a look here. Here's another one. This is a hashtag that's trending, questions for Isaias. And you just run through that list, and there are lots of questions that people have for the Eritrean leader on what he will be doing. Can you speak to that at all?
Well, I cannot speak on behalf of the Eritrean government because I'm not part of the Eritrean government.
Not what I was asking you to do, but more on the idea that people are calling on their government to put something forward in good faith.
No, absolutely. The no war, no peace situation no longer exists. Security between the countries have relaxed. The borders already started to become demilitarized. And so I expect there to be a lot of reform in Eritrea. There's been talk about returning the military service to its regular 18 months instead of it being indefinite. There's been news that Eritrean troops on their side of the border have also pulled back from the borderline. As you know, a lot of things are moving very fast. It's only been a month, and we've seen very drastic, epic changes. But then we also need to remind ourselves that it still took 18 to 20 years for us to reach this space. And so it will take us time. It will take all of us, not just the governments, but also for the people to, to internalize this normalization process, to heal from the traumas that they have experienced over the years. And I truly believe that the people will do that. They've already showed how very forgiving, resilient, loving they are as they went out to the streets to support each leader visiting the country. Also, the Ethiopian Airlines has commenced flights to Asmara. Eritrean Airlines will do the same soon to Ethiopia. And there's been so much love and mutual respect between the people. Although it's going to take time, this is not going to be a short-term thing that will be solved. I believe that with the faith and love of the people, it will go quick. And I think that things will change also in Eritrea quite quickly.
Well, what did you want to add? I saw you writing down a little note.
Yeah, I mean, I think the obvious dividends of peace in a context such as this, where one of the countries used the security problem with its neighbor as a pretext to keep such a tight grip over the population, is obviously the opening up and the relaxing of the political system and the political space. And I think Eritrea will no longer have that justification, that there is this huge country on the border that is keeping such a huge army ready to invade it. That justification disappears. When that justification disappears, if not much else, if it doesn't automatically push the Eritrean government to open up, at least it would give people the opportunity to say, now there is no security problem with Ethiopia, why are we keeping this tight grip? So it would open up space, I think, for activism, for resistance and struggle for the Eritrean people. And I think that is primarily for the Eritrean people, and it is important for us Ethiopians. We're just emerging out of a highly repressive system, and Ethiopia itself is struggling, and it is in a state of transition. But I think what we need to do as Ethiopians is to respect the fact that Eritrea is an independent, sovereign nation, right? The fact that we love each other and we are close to each other doesn't mean that we are one and the same.
All right.
But at the same time,
loving each other is a good point to end this on, because the last time I was watching you two together, it was slightly animated and slightly tense. I'm feeling the love emanating from the screen right now. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Stream. And you can keep tabs on more stories at aljazeera.com or by following us on Twitter @AJStream. See you next time.